Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight on our news.
The education minister reacts to criticisms over recently launched government audits. That story straight ahead.
Well, a Defense Force officer behind bars today. That story straight ahead.
Our news is brought to you by Alive, the nation's newest and best LTE network.
Good to be alive.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm KRISTINA McNeil. Topping news tonight, on the heels of this month's general election, a new group of senators will grace the upper chamber during the opening of Parliament on Wednesday. Free National Movement senators received their instruments of appointment at Government House this afternoon. Kyle Joaquin reports.
In all things, I will be a true and faithful minister. So help me God.
Following a week of speculation over his delayed swearing-in, Desmond Bannister was sworn in this afternoon as Minister of Works. It comes 1 week after the majority of the MINNIS cabinet was sworn in. Free National Movement senators also received their instruments of appointment today at Government House. Among them was We March Bahamas leader Reynard Henfield as a government senator. He joined many other familiar faces, which Prime Minister Dr. Hubert MINNIS described as a solid mixture of diverse backgrounds. They include Senate President Kay Forbes Smith, Jamal Moss, Dr. Mildred Hall, and trade unionist Jennifer Isaacs-Dotson.
I am pleased that the government members of the Senate reflect the diversity of our Commonwealth.
Then there's Dr. MINNIS's plans for the country's national broadcaster, ZNS. According to the Prime Minister, Pakeisha Parker Edgecombe, the Parliamentary Secretary for Information and Communication in the Office of the Prime Minister, will oversee the transformation of the public service station.
From a state propaganda machine under the last government into a properly functioning public broadcasting corporation.
There are also the other parliamentary secretaries: Vaughn Miller in the Ministry of Social Services, Iram Lewis in Public Works, James Albury in Abaco, Carlton Boleg in the Ministry of Agriculture, and Travis Robinson in the Ministry of Tourism. He said over the coming weeks he will also make appointments to government boards and corporations.
These appointments will reflect a tremendous diversity of Bahamian talent and experience. I am especially excited to invite a new generation of young people to serve on government boards.
Opposition senators are expected to receive their instruments of appointment tomorrow evening. For our news, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
In other news, a young Defense Force officer was arraigned in the magistrate's court today on gun-related charges. April Sands was in court and has the details.
Well, 640 forged U.S. dollars and an unlicensed firearm lands Defense Force officer Doswell Coakley behind bars. 21-year-old Doswell Kelvin Coakley of Kelder Drive, Monastery Park, appeared before Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt today and pleaded not guilty to several charges. The Defense Force officer was charged with possession of an unlicensed firearm, possession of ammunition with intent to supply, possession of forged currency notes, and possession of materials for forging notes in court today. Officers allegedly found a black and silver S&W 9mm pistol with an erased serial number, 16 live rounds of 9mm ammunition, and 40 live rounds of 9mm ammunition in Coakley's possession, along with forged U.S. currency yesterday. The court heard that Coakley had $32 $20 in U.S. currency, totaling to $640. It is also alleged that the Defense Force officer had 4 plastic bottles containing permanent paint colors pertaining to the makeup of U.S. dollar bills. Officers also found chemically bleached American $1 bills and 2 copied $50 bills in U.S. currency. Coakley pleaded not guilty to the charges and was denied bail. He was remanded to the Department of Correctional Services and will return to court June 23, 2017. Reporting for our news, I'm April Sands.
And a 45-year-old fisherman has been jailed for 5 years over the seizure of $1.6 million worth of marijuana found last week. Dominic Lavarity of Bannister Street, Fox Hill, was arrested last Thursday after officers conducting a stakeout in Mars Bay allegedly saw him and another man loading the 1,602 pounds of drugs onto the back of a truck from bushes. He pleaded guilty to the charges of conspiracy to possess drugs with intent to supply, conspiracy to import drugs, drug possession with intent to supply, and drug importation at an arraignment before Deputy Chief Magistrate Andrew Forbes. His co-defendant, 48-year-old Bernard Young of Mars Bay Andros, pleaded not guilty and will be tried on October 4th. Roger MINNIS represents Young, who was remanded to the Bahamas Department of Correctional Services. Attorney Alex Morley, who appeared for Lavarity, said his client had no previous convictions or pending matters and was remorseful for his actions. According to Morley, Lavarity has 10 children and 10 grandchildren who are dependent on him. In sentencing him, Forbes said that the drug trade had an inherently violent component that had a detrimental effect on society. Well, a retrial began this morning for the man accused of the murder of Marco Archer, the 11-year-old boy whose naked body was found in bushes days after he failed to return home in 2011. The trial is the second for Kofi Goodman, otherwise known as Eduardo Ferguson, after his first conviction was overturned on appeal last September. Goodman has denied the murder charge at his trial before Supreme Court Justice Carolina Bethel, who admonished the jury to base their decision on the evidence in the courtroom and not commentary on social media. The appellate court ordered a new trial due to adverse pretrial publicity and the behavior of Goodman's former attorney, Jeffrey Farquharson. Unlike the first, which lasted for 3 months, Bethel told the jurors that the trial was projected to last 5 days. In his opening address, Director of Public Prosecutions Garvin Gaskin said that circumstantial evidence would play a prominent role in the case. Wayne Monroe, QC, and Rizard Humes appear for Goodman, who is in custody. And police are searching for the gunman who shot and killed a man on Goggle Eye Drive shortly after he exited a vehicle last night. Chief Superintendent Solomon Cash says detectives have no motive, but here's what they know so far.
Shortly after 10:30 p.m., the male deceased was along with a female friend at this location when they were accosted by a lone gunman who discharged their weapons at the victim, which resulted in his injuries.
Cash says when officers arrived on the scene, minutes later, a woman who was with the victim when he died directed them to his body.
The officers arrived on the scene where they were directed to a vehicle that was parked on the southern side of the street. Upon examination of the vehicle, they found a female in that area who further directed the officers to a bushy area where they discovered the lifeless body of a male who appeared to be in his late 30s.
Well, new Minister of Education Jeff LLOYD confirming today that his ministry is also undergoing a major audit. The audit at Education is one of several being conducted by the MINNIS administration, which has been accused of conducting a witch hunt in the days following the general election. LLOYD today blasting critics and warning wrongdoers who may have something to hide. Jasmine Brown reports.
LLOYD was frank in his response to those criticisms, insisting anyone who has an issue with those audits and investigations must have something to hide.
Those who are claiming it to be witch hunt may have something to hide, may have something to fear, and if they do, to God be the glory. But that exercise is going to be done, and it's going to be done with alacrity, and we are not going to be deterred by any naysayers who obviously want some other objective to be realized.
Last week, government announced that forensic audits would be conducted on a number of government agencies and departments. The decision was made after Prime Minister Dr. Hubert MINNIS held his first cabinet meeting. The statement also said cabinet decided that all ministers would conduct audits within their respective ministries. LLOYD says while he met an ongoing audit in place when he was appointed education minister, the MINNIS administration decided to expand it.
Yes, that audit is going to be expanded and enhanced so that we can again come to an appreciation of exactly what the circumstances and the state of affairs are in the Ministry of Education, Department of Education. Very crucial. You know, we are spending over $300 million in education. We want to be sure that the Bahamian people are getting value for money.
According to the education minister, the audit would also take a look at people hired on contract, vendors, and school repair contracts.
The audit covers every single thing. We are looking obviously at the contractual relationship that the ministry and the department has with vendors or with consultants or with persons who are providing services for the ministry. We want to see and evaluate whether those contracts have been entered in with a view of providing the best opportunities and services and products that the ministry needs and that they can use immediately.
Lloyd was also asked when he expected the audit to be completed, but he did not commit to a timeline.
I expect it to be as soon as possible because we are entering into the new budget year. Schools are going to open in short 4 months from now. There's yet graduation that's underway, and as I indicated to you earlier, there is still school repairs that must be done.
The education minister says once that audit is completed, it will be made public. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Thanks, Jasmine. Still to come on our news, thieves hit the F&M's Tall Pines constituency office, plus the education minister visits public schools. That's coming up when our news returns.